We're going to be talking about trends in organizational leadership. And I would say this, the minute that you think you've got the trend kind of under wraps, you got it, you're set, it's going to change, right? Trends are just happening, and the pace at which they're changing is just so remarkable. Jay, you are pretty passionate about succession planning. What are some of the trends that you're seeing as it relates to succession planning and trends in organizational leadership?
Well, I would say one thing that all of us are seeing, Gray, you see it all the time, Billy, all of our consultants are dealing with this issue now of succession. Makes perfect sense. The math points in this direction. 10,000 people a day are turning 65 years of age. I mean, that is a staggering number. And it's not just that succession and how relevant that is to business owners, family business owners, which we work with a lot. But it's affecting nonprofits, affecting churches. Anybody who has a leader running an organization for an extended period of time, they're probably in that baby boomer category now. They're one of the 10,000 a day. And so we're dealing with that a lot. There's a lot of repercussions that go with succession: emotional, financial, organizational readiness. A lot of people are fearful of retiring. A lot of people are fearful of stepping away. A lot of people need to be needed, and therefore they almost would like to not have to step away and be needed again. So it's a relevant topic. It's not going away, and yet and Gray, you see this all the time. In fact, let me ask you a question. How often are you finding organizations truly prepared for succession?
Right. Well, I'd say about 2/3 of the consulting relationship we have a succession planning component to them. So most organizations are not ready, particularly if we speak of both types of succession: emergency succession. What if someone gets hit by the proverbial bus? And then planned succession that you're referring to is great. Someone's going to retire some years from the future. So I just think it's critical to begin with the end in mind. We know we're not eternal. We're all going to, here on this earth at least, we're all going to at one point need to be replaced. So how do you get your organization ready for that?
And I think if you go into that with an attitude that I am replaceable, right? I am a temporary steward of this organization, this nonprofit, it helps you to frame what that end result would look like. You guys have been around situations where there are times when leaders stay too long, isn't it?
Very common. And, it's obviously discouraging and embarrassing, but what leaders do realize after they step away is their organizations go on. None of us are irreplaceable. I know that's startling to people who think they are irreplaceable, but the reality is the organizations usually do go on, sometimes even do better.
Yeah.
Sometimes there are some impacts because they weren't ready. But, we would say, let's help them get ready. Let's make this a positive. I always say, let's go for win-win. Let's help the leader feel good about stepping out, including making sure they're financially ready, making sure they're dealing with the emotional goals of what's life going to be like. Because leaders struggle with that. They have been having an influence for decades, decision-making rights. But what happens with leadership succession is a lot of people are dependent on that leader only because they're in that position. Once they're retired, those phone calls, texts, and emails drop off exponentially. So I think it's something that cannot be underestimated, one of the top trends right now.
Yeah, and I would say, just to close this part up, the difference is between being proactive and reactive. Reactive is when you're not prepared and it really becomes more of an emergency. And some of it is, the proverbial somebody gets hit by a bus, or some of it is they're just done one day. And if you're not prepared for it, it could put your organization in a very difficult situation. Gray, one of the areas that you're pretty passionate about is kind of two letters, AI. What do you see as some of the trends in organizational leadership as it relates to AI? Where's it going?
Well, I wish I had that crystal ball to know exactly where it's going. But what I know of this is it's both a threat and an opportunity. And I think too many people have been focused on the threat. And it is that. Every technology has its threatening elements. But it's a real opportunity. And I think that you need to be asking yourself, what are the opportunities we have right here and right now, not 5 or 10 years in the future, but right now it's being embedded into, our Microsoft Office products. It's being embedded into a lot of other products. We all know about ChatGPT, and, I'm finding colleagues here at the center as well as clients who are already using ChatGPT in a lot of effective ways. So I would just say that organizations need to be asking the question, how can I be using it? Whenever I've got a lot of data or I've got to write things, are there ways, recognizing that it's not perfect, recognize that you're going to have to read it and make sure you agree with it. So there are risks again, but I think you need to be asking yourself right here, right now, are there ways that this could be making us more efficient and more effective?
Yeah. Jay, how about for you? Anything related to AI?
Boy, I wish I knew, like Gray. All I would say is I think the catastrophic predictions are probably, once again, over the top, but we do know it's a disruptor. We do know there will be substantive change from AI. Probably don't know to what level yet. And like you said, Gray, some of it's going to be good. There's going to be good outcomes from that. And some of it's probably unknown. And like every other technology, the creation of the car led to the ability to to drive and go further and live further and travel. It also led to pollution, car accidents, and people getting hit by DUIs, right?
Yeah.
So there's good and bad to everything that's been created, right? Computers give us the unbelievable productivity. It also gives us dangerous access to pornography and other, challenging things that come along with any advancement. AI is going to do the same thing.
You're right, Jay. I think one of the advantages of getting older is the perspective that you get on the past. And I just think back to the big things I've lived through, everything from, the dot-com bubble and burst, COVID, where there were people that were the optimists that said, this is going to change everything. Everything will never be the same again. And there were pessimists that said, this is all going away. This is a flash in the pan. And I found time and time again, the truth is always somewhere in the middle. Yeah. It's probably going to take a little longer to have some of the impacts that the optimists talk about, but it really is going to have an impact, but it's not going to change everything, but it is going to change a lot of things. Yeah. And I just think you need to start embracing it now, experimenting with it, being aware of what the risks are, and looking for those opportunities.
And even, use that metaphor of the flash in the pan, which any of us that have attempted to cook knows what that is. But even if something is a flash in the pan, flashes in the pan can burn us pretty badly in the short term. So people don't want to ignore these things and be arrogant in their prediction that it's meaningless or that it's going to conquer the world, but they better pay attention to it.
And when COVID hit, I think it was a disruptor for a lot of leaders. I mean, all of a sudden, I had to do a lot of mobilizing and getting people remotely. There was a lot of uncertainty. And I kind of look at a lot of leaders and think, overall, they did a pretty good job. Like, hey, great job. And maybe the way in which you think about AI is the same way. Don't try to figure it all out at once, but take steps. Maybe ChatGPT is going to be the first thing that I just really understand how it could help me be a little more productive, and then go into other areas about that. Speaking about remote teams and coming out of COVID, how do you build culture with a remote team? I think we're still trying to figure out, like, sometimes, how do you build culture with the team that you're with each day? I don't know, maybe some of us are like, no, it's kind of nice to not be with everybody each day. But how do you build culture in remote teams? Because that, to me, may be kind of the new question in these hybrid and highly remote environments.
Yeah. Well, you remember when the pandemic was taking place, all of the forecasters we're never going back. Offices are gone. That hasn't proven to be true. Offices are coming back. But I think what we're finding is a recalibration. And I think even the research that is showing up right now would say hybrid is still doable for maintaining culture. 100% remote, researchers would say, due to emotional intelligence issues, how much takes place through eye contact and close proximity. For example, we know that, this was in my doctoral research years ago, I read about just being in proximity physically in an office, trust goes up. And out of sight, trust goes down, even if you did nothing wrong. And so I would say, if as a leader, and you're all leaders as well, I believe hybrid is the better part of wisdom. 100% remote. I would not want to lead a 100% remote team because I think culture is everything. It's the make or break of an organization, and 100% remote makes that really hard for a leader to keep that culture strong.
Well, we all know the expression culture eats strategy for breakfast. And so this is a critical issue. Yes. And I guess for me, I look at it as just intentionality has to go up the more of a remote team that you have. Because if you think about it, in an office, culture happens in some ways. It's visible, it's tangible. You think of the water cooler conversations that you have, the hallway conversations that you have. But if you have a completely remote or even to some extent a hybrid team, you have to be intentional about one-on-one meetings to make sure that expectations are clear, make sure you're having those important conversations. And you have to be intentional about team meetings where you're getting everybody together and you're discussing things and connecting with them in personal ways. So you just have to be more intentional the higher percentage of remoteness that you have as a team.
And I think, the three of us, I could probably reach out to either of you through text, email. I could probably DM you, right? There's a variety of ways. I never thought I would say this, but sometimes just going to the phone part of your phone and actually calling somebody. Research has showed that just the intention of taking a phone call for somebody says, wow, you took an extra step, because a text, a DM can be very neutral in the way you experience it. But when you actually go right to the phone part of your phone, you get that, right? The phone part, I never thought I'd say that. You actually encourage somebody because they can hear your voice. There's something that happens within the mindset and the neurochemistry of our brain when I hear somebody on the other line. Just those simple steps. I think sometimes we're overcomplicating it by having to come up with this robust, remote plan as opposed to just reaching out to people and checking up on them.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Billy, because staying in contact is obviously the key. And if I had a remote team, I would personally feel like Zoom or other technology that allows me to see and to talk is better than just talking, and talking is better than just texting. There's a power in the visuals, and texting doesn't give us visuals.
Right.
Phone at least gives us audio, another sensory, and Zoom gives us 3 of those, and in person gives us all of those. So it's at least the better part of the remote element.
The only thing I would add to that, Jay, is that I think that we still have companies and clients that are afraid of hiring remotely. And there are certainly challenges, but I think in the tight labor market we're in, which is probably another of our organizational trends, in this tight labor market, sometimes you have to be willing to hire remote because it's the only way you'll find somebody with the qualifications you're looking for.
Yeah, we've just done it here in the center for the first time, right? We have a team member that's highly valued and due to marriage ended up moving almost 2 hours away. And we wanted them to stay. They wanted to stay. And so they're here 2 days a week and off-site 3 days, and it's working well. And but by that time, we've already established high trust relationships.
Yeah. I call that the win-win.
Yeah.
Listen, there are lots of topics around trends in organizational leadership. The ones that we've talked about are just a few. I hope that you're encouraged to maybe take some of these ideas and actually use them in the leadership you have.
Well, if we could ever help you in your leadership journey and your organization's leadership journey, we encourage you to visit our website. On our website, you could find enormous resources, including other videos, a number of blogs and other articles that we provide. And it even tells you more about how we partner with organizations to help them become effective.